Deb, you and I have been friends for nearly 20 years, and we've been on, huge journeys as independent women that we've supported each other through. And you've certainly been a backbone of my healing journey with my father. I think around the time that we met was when I'd pretty much had a bit of a breakdown in my personal life, just in my career. I was at a stage where I didn't really know who I was, but one thing that I recognised is that within my marriage I'd been really projecting a lot of my wounds with my father onto my husband at the time, and fortunately I was able to see that, and I knew that that was the right time for me to reach out to him after 30 years and make contact. And you were a huge part of that journey for me. And I remember one of the things that you pointed out to me was that I was running a core belief of not feeling worth it. And, it's interesting how certain life events change and alter the way that we are. We download these core beliefs. And when I went on that forgiveness journey, it wasn't just my ability to be able to come back to feeling worthy again. And, where that really stemmed from was the abandonment. He was a violent alcoholic. And after Mum left him when I was 7, after a couple of months, he chose to abandon us and move to Australia to avoid child support. So there were a lot of wounds that I accumulated over that, over those following years. My projection of not only the fear of abandonment, but resentment towards men. And that played out in many different areas. I certainly went through a phase as a teenager of being quite promiscuous. There was a part of me that was using my femininity in a toxic way to manipulate men, boys, teenagers of course, sexually. But of course that really left some deep damaging wounds within me, because whatever I was playing out with my ego and my pain wasn't being satiated. And so, many years later, when I came to that conclusion that I was projecting everything onto my poor husband at the time, you're tuning me into this whole belief system that I wasn't worthy really allowed me to understand the mantras I had as a child and as a teenager, where for 2 years I suffered with horrendous depression, which nobody knew about, and that was, to the point of suicidal at times. And the mantra was, I'm not worth it, because from a child's mind, he abandoned us, so I wasn't worth it for him to stick around. So therefore I was unlovable. So there were all these different layers. And one of the interesting parts that you pointed out to me in this whole worthiness story was my dysfunction with my relationship with money, and how in not feeling worthy or worth it, I didn't feel able to receive abundance. So I'd created a lot of financial blocks. I had a very dysfunctional relationship with money. And I think over the years those first years that we became friends, so much healing went on from that one thing. And as you know, my journey of forgiveness with him was a long one, and it wasn't easy. And I know that, other people in my life will refuse to actually forgive him, because why should we? He was this, he was that, he did this to us, he did that. But what I found and discovered through making contact with him and being there before he died was just how much he had suffered in his own life as a result of his behaviour. And this is something that I would never have known had I not been able to come to a place of unconditional love and acceptance, and not only that, but actually gratitude for my life and the woman that I became because of him. So I was able to really reframe from a place of being a victim into complete empowerment. And I can honestly say that now I have nothing in my heart but unconditional love and absolute gratitude for him. And so you've been on your own journey with your family. So tell us about what, how that played out for you and your journey with forgiveness.
For me, forgiveness was, I knew the word, but I didn't fully understand the concept, the how to. And so one of my biggest teachers on forgiveness was my mother. And my mother, I would hold non-forgiveness with her. And so at times when she told me she loved me, I couldn't receive because my heart was closed because I was holding unforgiveness, non-forgiveness with her. And so these times when chose I could, okay, I can step into forgiveness now. It is time, knowing that, especially in my later years, it was my later years, I had a very, what I call a very toxic relationship with my mother. From my experiences with her, and so one moment, I would feel the love, and then it was like there was no love, and I went into this place of trying to understand it. And as a little person, that's a tricky one. It was a tricky one. But as I became an adult and I was searching for peace, I was searching for peace within me, and I wanted peace to know, well, for peace because it felt good. For me, it's about the feeling, and also about what I'm feeling inside of me. So what I noticed for myself was when I was in a place of non-forgiveness and feeling like about the experiences, I could feel this in my heart. It was a real tightness, in fact, in my heart. And I know when I was holding non-forgiveness, it was not really hurting, but I could feel that in there. It was like, ooh. And I'm like, okay. And so I had this experience of the ebb and the flow with with the healing with my own mother. And because of that, of what I was holding, the energy that I was holding of non-forgiveness, I'm like, okay, I've just got to let go now. And every time I had an experience with my mother of, I love you, one moment, and then it's like, phew, the next moment, that's what it was with my mum, very, very intense. And she would open her heart to me, and then all of a sudden it was like, shut the door. And so I had this ebb and flow with her. So I was like, whoa, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be like that with my children and with myself. I wasn't really thinking of myself earlier on, but now I know it is about myself as well. And so for, for me, it was really an experience of feeling what I was feeling with her, with what was coming in and what was going on within my own heart space. Because I know from experience, if I have non-forgiveness with anybody, whoever it may be, I can feel it in my heart chakra and my energy system. And that to me is, and I know if I hold that tight, it'll affect my physiology and my health. And there was a time in my life that this was coming to a head for me. And I thought, whoa, I'm not going down that same road of this physiological, my physical heart having, blocked, feeling blocked. And there's quite a few experiences I had as an adult where I could feel that. It was like, whoa. Anyway, so I chose the forgiveness road with my mother. And at times it was a pretty tricky road because memories would come up and experiences. I'd go into this place of, right, it's time to forgive my mother. And then I'd go visit my mum and I'd have this experience of like, oh, okay. And even to fast forward, even to that moment when my mum was in hospital and I knew she was leaving. She was leaving. I'm like, and I was feeling that experience, and I'm like, okay, is there something else I need to forgive? If I've got another layer of forgiveness with my mother, because there were a lot of layers stacked up through my childhood, and so for that really, for me, it was more of a feeling. It was that whole thing of feeling it in my heart, in my energy, and now I feel like I feel more open, and I'm at that place just like you with your dad. I'm at that place where, oh, that feels good. I can remember those experiences, but not and hold that energy of, and of course, and so I feel like I've evolved from that place, from a little child of, oh, I've got to go see my mum, oh, I've got to go, from even as a teenager and then going into my older years. But now I feel like I can experience those memories now, and just I believe that we had this ebb and flow experience with each other. For me, it was about she showing me how to to open my heart even more to love, and I can give my absolute gratitude to her for those experiences, and now I can. And so it's like, it doesn't mean I don't have another layer of healing with her, but it's more, I'm more open to that. I'm more open to what that is. And so forgiveness, I'd go to the hospital and I'd sing the song I forgive, of forgiveness, letting go, surrendering. And I do a lot of my healing through song and through voice within myself. And I probably, like you, like life, we get these people coming in, or these things coming in to help us with our healing journey. So for me, it's very much that's how I did my work with my mum. So yeah,
Yeah.
very powerful.
I love, there was a few things I picked up on what you said, and this may really help people that are hearing this, is that non-forgiveness is a contracting, it's a contracting and restricting energy, and forgiveness is light and love and expansive.
Yes.
And people feel our frequency, they feel the energy of us. And I really believe that as women, we are here to do our work, to transform from pain and to become the light and the leaders in this, because the world needs us. They really do, and our families need us, and we need to role model what it means to return to that wholeness. And the other layer is that, any time we are feeling this kind of low vibrational energy or emotion, that energy and motion, it's really an inbuilt guidance system to tell us that our thinking is incorrect. And if we look at the human ego, that's really the source of all of our pain and suffering, the things that we hold on to, the things we accumulate in life. And over time, that becomes our armour that we stack, as you say, particularly in the heart centre. And we become more withdrawn. And then we often get to points and turning points in our life where that armour is so heavy. And we have to make a choice. Am I going to hold on to this forever? Or am I going to release and authentically return to love? And, I think, the spiritual work that we do in our retreats is really centered around that. We have our egoic thoughts, the tricks of the mind that kind of hold us in those lower emotions, the stress, anxiety, fear-related conditions. And then we have the other side of who we are, which is our true innate nature, that we are love, and we're, the soul itself is unconditional love. And to me, life's journey and life's school is really about course correcting us back to return to love. And, you and I have, supported each other in that throughout the years. So the other thing that I think is worth mentioning here is I think sometimes people hear the word forgiveness and they think that it's, something huge, that there's a particular catalyst, in your case, your mother, in my case, my father. But what I've come to realise is that forgiveness is the highest form of spiritual practice. And when we understand that in action, it becomes a devotional practice of how am I thinking in this moment? How am I feeling within this moment? And am I coming from my head or am I coming from my heart? And we see this with the women that come to our retreats, where we're really supporting them to return to their wholeness. And, women are really good at stacking stuff against their partners, against everybody. We have this mental check sheet or rap sheet really, of everything that's someone's done to us, and a little wound list. And, if the shit hits the fan, we're going to spout that out often, right? Particularly with our relationships. And that is in itself a form of non-forgiveness. So it doesn't have to be the gigantic catalysts, it becomes actually a way of being. And, you know, we all have those people in our lives that we have strong emotional charges with, our catalysts. And how do you cope with the people in your life that really trigger you in the moment? Because we still get triggered.
Yeah, and we still have experiences.
We're still here.
Yeah.
We're still in life school, right?
Yeah.
And no one's perfect. So this is an ongoing practice to embody returning to love, right? Am I in my loving thoughts right now, thinking this of this person? And, you know, we may have those moments where we're, holy heck, what's going on? But when we calm everything down and retreat back and we come back from here into here, that is a practice of forgiveness, of choosing not to carry the burden of grudge holding, and to actually be a role model, you know, to our children and our community of what it feels like to, you know, not continue to accumulate baggage in life. So how do you kind of return to those moments and practice forgiveness just in your daily life?
Well, one of the things that just that I read a plaque many years ago. I was supporting a beautiful man with heart surgery, and I remember being in that think, you know, and because I've always been interested about what we're thinking here, how is it affecting us, you know, our bodies, and so one of the plaque said, one must open one's heart even if it means surgery. And that really spoke to me. That spoke
That's
to
powerful.
me. I know.
Yeah.
It was this plaque and stone up on the wall in this waiting room in the heart ward.
Wow.
And
That's quite forward thinking.
yeah, I know. I'm like, wow, this is in the hospital.
Yeah, that's super cool.
But it spoke to me because I that was the work I was really wanting to understand. And so one of the things that I fast forward to today with your question of how do I manage it, and the way I manage it is, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I'm like, whoa, and I have a wee wobble. It's in my nervous system, and I'm like, and sometimes I go, what the bleep? But the bottom line is, when I have those moments to release that energy, and then I go, okay, I take a breath. I take a breath because what the bleep, and when you speak about the echo, for me it's in the head. It's in these two hemispheres of the brain, two sides of my brain. And I go, what the bleep? How did that happen? Why? You know, the victim thing. Well, how did that happen to me? And so I realise what I do is when I take the breath, I'm like, oh, there's another experience to help me open my heart to love, to allow my physiology, allow my heart. And because the other side of non-forgiveness, when we're in non-forgiveness, we're in grief. We're in a state of grief. And grief is a really tricky, you know, there's a real thing between non-forgiveness and grief that we store. And grief has been a big player in my journey, in my unfolding, in my life. And so when I have a moment of you know, non-forgiveness, and I can still have those moments, right? As you say, we're not perfect. It happens. So for me, the first thing, I come in and I ask the question, what is this showing me? What is this person? What is my mirror here? What's this person showing me? And I've just had an experience like last year on this, and it was very intense. It was my family members, and I thought, wow, this is really powerful. So the other side of it for me is, I feel it, I can have a little wobble, and then I go, okay. And so I'm a very deep thinker. I can go into deep thought around this, but I also, not just deep thought, I go into deep contemplation.
Feeling. Yeah.
Contemplation for me, feeling it and feeling, whoa, I don't want to like this feeling. I don't want this feeling. And so I I ask my question, how much longer do I want to feel this? How much longer do I want to play this game with my family member, with me? How much longer do I want to do that? I'm like, I'm done. And so I make those decisions within myself, and I go and go, okay, I've got some work here to do, and I've got some learning to do. And so the bottom line, the latest experience around non-forgiveness, because I was having a good old shot at non-forgiveness in that experience, and my ego wanted to come in and, how dare you behave like that? How dare you? And so that's what it is. Here's the bottom line for me. I can have a play. Okay, it's not feeling good. I'm done. Sometimes I need to move my body because I can hold it in that kinesthetic. I'm such a feeler. That kinesthetic, I've got to move my body. Right, I'm going for a walk. And so as I go for a walk, I'm moving the energy through. I'm moving it through. And so and this is what we do. We do this unconsciously, but I do it more consciously these days. When I know I've got something to clear, all right, I'm going walking, or else I'll go into the ocean, wherever it is, wherever I'm guided to do. And so, and that's another thing that I do. When we come into our heart, we come into a place of guidance. We come into a place of that place where our inner wisdom is. That in place of inner wisdom, when we can connect to that, it's almost like we don't have to do it all alone. Even though we make the decisions, there's more that comes into play. There's more energy that comes into play, and we're clearing.
I love that you say that because, we are in a world where we're so disconnected from Source, from God, from our higher self, from our intuition. We switch off to that. And, really what you're talking about is the soul drawing us back into centre, and the uncomfortable emotions and the stress and anxieties and everything that's coming from fear is really, I believe, the universe's way or God's way of saying, hey, you're not coming from a place of love right now. Return to love. And as you say, it is a devotional practice because we're in life school, and we're going to get triggered. And I think how we return from that place back into love is a skill in itself. As you say, come back to here, take the breath, allow that energy and motion, that emotion, to actually be okay, instead of switching off to it and stuffing food in our face, or getting that glass of wine, or whatever that addiction is, to avoid and distract the pain. I'm an addiction specialist, right, ultimately, and what I'm constantly trying to say to women, the reason you fall off the wagon is that we don't know, because we haven't been taught the skills from a young age to regulate our nervous systems. We've been raised in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and, particularly, in the early days, we had to behave a certain way. And love wasn't really unconditional in many generations. It was conditional. You must be a good girl, you must be a good boy, and if you behave this way, then I will give you some attention and affection. So we modify our behaviours. And so the problem with that is that we haven't been taught safe ways from our childhood to be able to sit in uncomfortable feelings and emotions. And so this is something that I'm trying to bring awareness to, is how do we cultivate those skills within ourselves in the moment to go from trigger to recovery, where we can come out of the head, out of the pain, out of all that, writhing energy and stress that we're trying to just avoid. How can we shorten that refractory period from trigger to recovery to come back to centre? And that in itself is a devotional practice, to actually go, whoa, I recognise what's going on, lean into the emotion. So Conversations with Deb is coming up this weekend, and you're going to be on that with me for 2 days. And what I love about what we're putting together here is, we're giving women the actual experience. We're teaching them the tools and the processes, so we're going to lay the foundation of what this really means on a bigger picture, why it's relevant to every human being, why this is the highest form of spiritual devotion and practice to embody in the moment, and why this type of healing is so important. We often talk about intergenerational traumas and wounds. We pass on certain characteristics from mother, grandmother, mother, daughter, grandchild. And, as women are starting to awaken now, right? We're starting to see the patterns. We're starting to become conscious of them. If we become the light and do our own healing, we are literally role modeling that to everyone in our community, our family, and our home. So we can basically say it stops here. You can really see the journey of some women. Some of the most inspiring women to me have the brightest light. And it's the light from within that makes someone beautiful to me. And, those women that have really embodied compassion and unconditional love are the ones that we remember. And to me, that's one of our life purposes, to really do our work and be the best version of ourselves. And that really is an inside job.
And often we go through life and think, I've got nothing else to forgive. I've done my forgiveness.
Yeah.
I've done my forgiveness of my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my da 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 da. But in actual fact, if we're still getting some experiences from life, because as we know, people are our mirror. They're our people. They're the ones. Whatever the experience of is the mirror. And I love the mirror work because it teaches us. Oh, I have got something else to forgive. There is something else. That might have been from when I was a little 3-year-old girl, right, or a 9-year-old, or whatever it may be. There is still a couple of layers going on there. So if we're sitting in a space of I've done my work, I'm okay. That can be very limiting for us. I'm not saying we have to just keep digging, but if
No.
you are
Yeah.
experiencing something in your arena that is still triggering you, and your heart is retracting, then there's some work. There is something to be done there.
Or even, it doesn't even have to be, a particular person or situational trauma or anything in our life. To me, it's, am I dealing with stress? Am I dealing with anxiety? Am I coming from a place of fear? Where is it that those blocks are? And forgiveness is at the foundation of all of it.
One of the things that was really powerful for me is as I chose to learn more forgiveness of my experiences in life, thinking there was other people I needed to forgive. One of the big awakenings for me was forgiving myself. The forgiveness of self is the journey that I've only just embarked on in the last however many years. And because I always thought forgiveness was about other people, but forgiveness of self, whoa, that's another layer of forgiveness. And so for me, that's really a really powerful thing is, self-forgiveness, coming into that place. And I'm like, whoa, I've got a couple of layers going on, I've got a few.
I love that you've raised that, Deb, because this will be something that we really cover in the weekend. But that is, again, another way of returning to your wholeness, because no matter what we've done or haven't done, often we carry layers of shame or guilt or self-punishing kind of unworthiness. There's so many different core beliefs and layers there that I'm not enough. And that returning to wholeness is really about exactly that. We have to go through and release those negative belief systems of ourselves. And again, that's a devotional practice of self-love. I mean, to me, forgiveness isn't just the highest form of spiritual practice, it's the highest form of self-love at the same time.
Yes. And I remember reading that book many years ago, probably 35 years ago I read that book, Return to Love.
A Course in Miracles.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it was Marianne Williamson, her book, and it was like my Bible. I'd carry it around with me and I'd go, what do I need today, And I thought it was about returning to love, forgiving everybody else, And I never thought that book was really about me
Right.
when I read it, right?
Yeah.
And it's just a powerful thing. I'm looking forward to reading it again, actually,
Yeah.
from where I am today.
Yes. Yeah. It's very powerful. So that book came from her studying A Course in Miracles, and really that's the essence of those teachings, which I'm a big fan of and student of, is really understanding that there is only love. That's the only truth in this world. And, we are living in a world and a society where we've got Instagram perfect and everyone's putting their best foot forward and no one's really vulnerable in ways that we should be. And, as women, we need vulnerability with each other to say, hey, Deb, I'm having a bad day.
Yeah.
I'm not coping today.
Yeah.
This is what's coming up for me. This is what's going on. Help, please. And that returning to love is, as you say, it's a self-practice, but it's also a practice of being a better friend.
Yeah.
To be a non-judgment, to be a safe place for, even our daughters to come to us with anything, because we're practicing unconditional love and acceptance and holding a space where no matter what, we're able to be there for each other when we really need each other, and that non-judgment. So you can see that forgiveness filters into everything.
It sure
in life.
does. It sure does. And what happens is just talking about that, those moments we've had. And I'm like, Deb, having a wobble. I'm going through a moment. And I can remember one moment where I was going to my mother's house, and she had totally rejected me, and I had to drop something off at the back door instead of going and giving her a hug. I wasn't able to give her a hug. The bottom line for me of that one is those moments when we've had those conversations, we hold each other in love, but we also hold each other in truth. And that is the gift of conversations with Debs. It's the gift of that weekend. An invitation to come back into full truth within self.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about it.
Yeah, and we have kind of talked about this our entire friendship. Wouldn't it be cool if we could record our conversations and really model what it is to be an unconditionally loving friend? Where we're not just anchoring each other's story or getting into the unconscious, that we're just holding this space of complete compassion, but also being able to say, well, actually, what I'm picking up in this moment, and you're very good at that. You'll often sit there and you'll be going, well, here's another layer, or here's another truth, and that's what community and good sisterhood is about. So I'm excited about this this weekend. This is, I think, probably the most important 2-day event I've done, and I believe it has the power to really lift and enlighten women and help them let go and release and unfold. And we see that in our retreat work. When women arrive, they've got the weight of the world on their shoulders, many of them, and by the time they leave, they're just 10 feet tall and light and bright, and that's really our intention for this weekend. So it's not scary. It's not about talking about trauma. It's not about that stuff.
No.
This is actually, what does it mean to be devoted to your best self and the unfolding of that best self. Yeah.
And I love that word, the practice of unfolding.
Yeah.
Deeper into who we truly are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So to join us this weekend, click the link here, and remember that this is not only a beautiful gift that you can give yourself, but the light that's going to shine from you as a result is going to benefit everybody. And these annual events that we do are really designed for you to be able to retreat, set up your own home retreat, and to be part of a sisterhood where you're going to be connecting, doing processes together. You'll be going into breakout rooms. You'll be able to learn the principles of mirror work and reflection work, and how to actually deal with situations in the moment, and release and let the light back in. So click the link here and we look forward to seeing you this weekend.